What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Outside the Barn, presented by the good people of New Amendment. I am one of your hosts, Kendal Shell, along with me, Blake Hoffarber, Trevor Mbakwe. Blake, Trev, how we feeling today?
Kendall, you got a birthday coming up soon too, don't you?
Yes, I do. It's this Thursday, so you're tomorrow the 24th. I'm the 26th. It'll be my 30th, so pretty big birthday probably. Excited for it though, man. Excited. Nothing like those January birthdays. Me and you, Aquarius game.
Yeah. Welcome to your 30s. You won't be the same.
Oh man, I'm excited. I don't know. Did things change? I know y'all both hit the 30. Do things change at 30, or is it just all in your imagination?
Shit gets real when you're 30. You gotta start making that cheddar.
You're right.
No,
you're right.
That's right. No, the 30s, the 40s is your time to get going. So I like turning 30. I'll be approaching 40 coming up in 5 years. That's I'm not looking forward to that. I like the 30s.
Slow down, Blake. Slow down.
Easy on that one. But no, yeah,
34 on 44. So Trev, how's the 40s?
I'm about to retire soon.
Oh. Times must be good in the educational world, man.
All right, man. No, that's the goal. All right, fellas. Well, let's tip things off here. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's been happening. You know, what's been happening around the league, around the Big Ten, but not just the Big Ten, the Gophers. I know it's not something, we're too excited to talk about. I know the season has been rough, to say the least, but, before we get into the X's and O's, of these last few games, Purdue and Michigan, we're struggling, man. We're last in the Big Ten. Like, I wanted you both just to put your coaches' hats on before we get into those X's and O's. What are you telling your team right now? I'll start with you, Trev. Like, what are you telling the squad like that? I don't know if you've been on a squad where it's been like this, if you've had a rough patch like this starting things out, but I know it's hard just to keep that confidence, especially with what the Big Ten is. So what are you telling your squad, before we get into things?
I mean, at this point, there's still a lot of season left. I think they have had bright spots the last 4 to 5 games. The Purdue game is Purdue. Purdue's number one in the nation for a reason. They have everything you need. Like, you got to put that game behind you. Michigan was a tough battle. Like, they came out the gates ready to play. You can see the excitement, and he's got to kind of build off that momentum. Hopefully Dawson's not out too long. He had that freak kind of ankle injury that happened in the second half. But, we rallied. We battled. We competed. And, you just kind of keep sending that same message. Like, this long season, he's still, you never know what can happen in a Big Ten tournament. You can go on a run, sneak into the NCAA tournament or whatever the case may be. And you just got to stay together. Forget the outside noise. People are going to say, oh, this team sucks. They're only 1-5, 1-6, whatever the case may be. But you got to keep believing in each other and keep playing hard. At the end of the day, like, a lot of these guys are still playing for a job at the next level. I think they have aspirations to play, pro ball somewhere. And we have a lot of young talent too. And those guys are going to play hard because they know they have to come back next year and play. So just, kind of keep the spirits up and keep competing and, staying healthy, losing Braden and hopefully not Dawson, but just kind of stay healthy at this point in the season. Blake?
Yeah, man, I agree with Trev. I think, my senior year, and Trev was basically a senior year, but junior year, we were 10th in the country rolling. A couple guys got hurt, and all of a sudden we went on a losing skid and, had a bad stretch. I mean, I think we lost like 10 out of 11 games at the end of the year when we were 10th in the country. And, so we've been through that. It's tough. And I almost think it was worse for us because we had the potential there. Not saying we don't have the potential, but I mean, we were a solid team back then. We won the Puerto Rico shootout. We beat West Virginia. We beat North Carolina with Harrison Barnes. I mean, we had a squad going and then we just plummeted. And it's tough to get out of that funk. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, when the media is talking about it, when you feel down, when, you never want to get used to losing, but, when you keep losing like the way we're losing, it's tough. And I think the bright spot is, the Michigan game, right? We were right in that game. We were up 8-0, things were flowing. Unfortunately, being close isn't getting a win, but it's not like we're getting blown out. The Purdue game, I get it, right? That game would almost look like we were a little nervous or scared to get out there, but they're the number one team in the country. So I almost want to just brush that game aside. But the Michigan game, I watched the whole thing. It was a good game. I think we kind of got a little, made some mistakes at the end of that game that cost us a little bit. But, it's not like we're getting blown out by 20, 30, 15 points. I mean, we were right in that game. We're a young team. Fan and us have to realize, I'd be a little more nervous if, we kind of had all, juniors and seniors that were, struggling like this. Well, we got a pretty young team. I mean, I don't even know if we have any seniors on the team. So we got to realize that's the bright spot with this team. Like I said in previous podcasts, we got to keep getting better on a day-to-day basis, and we got to be a better team come March. And that's what Ben Johnson and the team's got to focus on to try to get wins, but also to improve individually and collectively as a team. To be a better team, to almost prepare for next year. You want to look into next year because we still have the Big Ten tournament and many games throughout this year. But, we want to get better as a group and a cohesive team for the future as well.
Just to go back to what you said, Blake, I remember like when we lost 10 of those last 11 games or whatever the case may be, they're all like within 5-6 points. So like, for us, like, it was like, okay, we're winning the game, then they'll come back and it's like, okay, damn, now it's the last 4 minutes of the game. Like in our minds, like you were thinking about how the last 8-9 games went. So for this team, it's like when that second half comes, teams start making that push, they kind of have to forget about the past and have to live in that moment. And I think that's, it was tough. Like, I don't know if you remember, like we looked at each other, 4 minutes, like, okay, hopefully we don't lose this game, but losing 10 out of 11 games by less than 5 points, like 2 possessions, like I think that was always the hardest part. Going back into the locker room.
And a lot of that, we also had a young team because Al got hurt. He was our point guard, Al Nolan. That really killed us because we weren't super deep that year. But when he went down and Mo Walker, backup center, tore his ACL, he was a freshman. And we had a lot of freshmen on that team. And nothing against freshmen. They were all studs, good players, Austin Hollins and Maverick Ahamisi, but they were young, right? So it's tough to be a freshman, maybe not get that much playing time early in the year, then expect to come in and play a lot of minutes, especially in the Big Ten, and have that confidence at the end of the game to close a game out. I mean, we're all basketball players. You can watch teams when you see them at the end of the game and you're like, all right, this team's going to win. And they could be down 5, but you can just see it in their, willpower and their kind of mindset that they're going to win. And, some teams just don't have it yet. They're going to get it, but they just don't have that dog in them yet, or that ability to say, like, we're not losing. And it's tough to have that we're not losing mentality when you keep losing.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think, our team in a way reaped those benefits, Blake, right? Your senior year after you were done, I came in and was a freshman, right? Trevor became, able to play as well in our squad, and he was healthy. And what happened was like Austin and Mav and a lot of those guys, Mo, Elliott, they were sophomores, Otto, but like they played like they weren't sophomores, right? They had so much more poise. And I think in return, that started to help us younger guys. And like those practices were tough. Like when I first came in, like, I mean, these were grown men playing, right? You got Trev dunking on everybody, yelling at everybody. You got Rodney going between the legs with flip-flops. You got these guys, these guards, right? Mav and Austin, like, they knew what that Big Ten was about early. They were able to tell guys like myself, Dre Hollins, everybody else, Joe Coleman, like, yo, like, it's about to get real. And so I see that same type of thing happen, even though we don't see it now. But like next season, you see these young guys, Ola Joseph, Braden, all these guys getting punched in the mouth this year, but they're going to remember and they're going to only be stronger for these next few years. So hopefully Gopher fans try to remember that. But I think we know that's important. I think it's going to be something they can hang their hat on. And at the end of the day, they just got to keep competing. And like you guys said, I think the last game we had, they were competing. This Purdue game, not so much. So let's jump into the X's and O's here. Let's start with the Purdue game. I'll be quite honest. I don't want to stick on this game too long because honestly, I hope Coach Johnson didn't talk about this game too long, right? I think it's one of those things where you got to move past it. You watch the film, you learn from it, but that's all you can do. Like you talked about, Blake, number 1 team in the country. Trev, you said Zach Edey was a cheat code. As you can see, he was. But, I mean, I'll open up for you, Trev. Like, what were your main thoughts you saw from a basketball standpoint that game? I know it was tough to watch, but is there anything that stood out, majorly for you from that game?
No.
Just no.
No.
I mean, you play we had 12 points at halftime. Like there were a lot of bright spots. Like we were just overmatched. And I think for a lot of those guys too, like they can see like the difference, like what they need to do to get to that level. Like there's levels to it, and like they show that we're not close to that level. But I mean, I give all the credit to Purdue. Like they came in on a mission. Like they came in like it was a business trip. Like they weren't playing any games. Like we're going to show you why we're a top 5 team in the country, and that's what they did. So, I mean, be honest, there's not a lot of bright spots, and I promise you, I don't think Coach Johnson spent much time talking about that game afterwards. And I think they were like, "Hey, let's just get ready to head to Ann Arbor and let's get a win on the road."
Yeah, completely agree. I don't think Blake has much. Blake, you got anything from it?
No, I mean, it's one of those games where you don't want to laugh, but you got to laugh. Kind of like, oh, man. No. There was a few times in my career when I was at the U where Tubby was a big film guy, but I remember a couple games, like similar situation, maybe not that bad, but pretty bad, where you were like just scared shitless to go into that film session. Like, this is going to be bad. And then you'd be like, all right, we're not watching film because it was that bad. Let's just focus on the future. But we all know those feelings when you had to sit through film and your clip was coming up. You knew exactly when it was in the film, and you were just sitting there like sweating, like just waiting to get in.
That was always the worst part. During the game, you're late on assignment. You're like, oh, that's going to be on film tomorrow.
Right.
You were almost hearing more that you had to watch it in film than actually in game. Like the guy just scored on you. You were more like, oh man, the whole team's going to see this tomorrow.
Man, don't let Trev laugh. Trev was one of the worst when it came to that, man, especially when we was watching film. He knew when somebody was messing up, and he'd let you know, like before film or something, be like, hey, you ready? Or like, you know a play coming up, or the worst is you just don't get dunked on or something. Trev would start looking at you or something, or nudge you to be, man, it'd be the worst. It'd be you couldn't get Trev too much because he ain't had too many missed assignments on defense, unfortunately.
Oh, but the only time if you score 12 points at halftime and think you're going to win is probably when you're playing against Wisconsin. That didn't show up yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, we're not.
That's a fact.
We're not a good offensive team this year, but I don't think we're that bad where we're scoring 12 points and a half. So, but, you know, everyone's like, I don't want to say surprised, but when you're shooting, 20, 30% from three and 59% from the free throw line, I mean, what are we expecting, right? I mean, we gotta pick a couple of these things up and, keep getting better. But, we can't expect much when we're shooting that poorly from the three and from the free throw line.
Yeah, right. No, I think we can move on past it, man. I'll leave you with a stat, take it or leave it. But we are coming up on the 72-year anniversary of, Minnesota scoring. I guess this would be the lowest scoring effort, since yesterday. And that lowest scoring effort was against Indiana, 32-26. And that was in 1951. So
Trev, tell us about that game.
Yes. Oh, man.
Well, yeah.
It's tough.
Who's the coach?
Who knows who the coach? Trev, why you act like you don't know? But all right.
Going through
Here
that,
we go. So
flipping to the next thing. I just want to make sure, and maybe we're flipping over to Michigan now, but I'm still waiting for the day that Jamison and Dawson have a solid game together, right? They're both having good games here and there, but like we talked about this in previous sessions, and we're talking about offense, right? In order to get offense going, I think they got to work with each other and work off each other, and you just don't see them both scoring 20 plus points a game. 20, I want to see one game where, Dawson's got 20 and 10 and Battle's got, 4 threes with 24 points and, 5 assists. And I haven't seen it yet this year.
I'll be honest. Just something's going on with Jamison. I don't know if it's like a mental block or whatever the case may be. Like he's too good of a shooter to go, 0 for 9 or whatever, 3 for 15 or whatever he's been shooting. It's just like I don't know if it's like his foot's bother him or if, he just doesn't trust himself right now. I think Dawson has shown flashes like, yesterday versus Michigan. He was consistent, knocking out open threes, attacking the basket, and doing those things. He struggled on defensive end mightily, but a lot of kids do versus Dickinson and like the bigs and the guards that Michigan has. But Jamison, he just doesn't look right. And I don't know I'm not sure what it is. Maybe you guys have a better understanding.
Yeah,
of it.
I was wondering.
I still think he's, shooter to shooter. I mean, he's a solid shooter, so I don't think he has an issue with that. I just think potentially it could be some of the shots he's having to take this year because we're just struggling that bad shooting the ball and getting shots where he's having to, take a little more difficult shots and maybe force some things a little more often, just with what's going on. But, I did see a couple times in the Michigan game, one for sure, where he caught it and he drove and got a layup, right? So, I think the more he can start doing that, and, like we talked about in the last podcast, one dribble, two dribble, pull up for a shot, get all the way to the bucket, get to the foul line. I think the more he starts doing that, people will take him a little more honest from the outside, where they're not just going to get up into his, grill every time to, make sure he doesn't hit that three. And I want to see him start doing that a little more, even if he does it too much, where he's not relying on the 3-point shot as much. But I almost want him to take a step forward on, hey, instead of just being a 3-point shooter, let's have you get to the bucket a little more, and then the 3-point shot will slowly come. I mean, I didn't have that capability. I tried to do it towards the end of my career, but let's be honest, I didn't have the athleticism or height and bulk that he has. I mean, he could be a player that does that, and that's not a knock on him. That's an advantage that I think he has, and he's got to do. On my side, I was, I said I was 6'4", but like 6'3", couldn't jump, wasn't that athletic, so I didn't have the capability to try to do it as much as he could. And he's got the strength to go up against a big guy, and get an and one, or, get a putback dunk or dunk over somebody. And I just want him to start doing that a little more. Then his 3-point shot will stop falling again. Just, it's amazing how focusing on other things in your game lead to things you do well getting better.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like the best Jamison is the Jamison that's a 3-level scorer. Just like you said, like, it's just way more open, and we see glimpses of it, right? When he gets to his mid-range, the middy's nice, right? Level 2 shot, I love that. And like you said, Blake, he can finish above the rim, right? And like, I think we saw him get to the rim a couple times. It's just like, we do need to see that, a little more of that, and I think that'll give him better shots from 3, and then also it'll just give him a little bit more confidence. But yeah, if he's not on from 3, it's almost like he's taken out of the game. So I don't know. Hopefully we see something different from that. And to your point, Trev, I don't know, and your point, Blake, I don't know if there's something wrong there. I don't know what we need to be looking at. But it's tough. It seems like both of them, quite honestly, guys, like, health seems like an issue right now. All right, let's talk about what it is. Like, coming off of yesterday's game against Michigan, Dawson obviously is a little unhealthy right now. And then I think Jamison went out with some back trouble, one of the last few games. So it's just one of those things where we only have like 7 or 8 guys. We're playing 8 max, but Braden Carrington is out right now too. It's getting to the point where overuse seems like it's kind of out there too. So I don't know how, fatigued these guys are. I think Dawson is an unbelievable athlete, right? I think one thing you can see from that is, like, I saw the mile times Coach Johnson posted. So you can always see right away who has good wind and conditioning when you see the mile times. I think Dawson had the fastest one, but like, I think Dawson is an unbelievable athlete. But other than that, still, like, these guys are getting used a lot. So I'm really worried about really the health as well with Dawson and with Jamison.
I'm curious, before we answer that, what were the times? Do you remember Dawson was the fastest? What was that time? Because, Trev, you remember with Tubby, man, we had to run that mile every day in preseason, which was no joke. And I remember, I think when I was there, DeVoe was the fastest at like 4:52 or something. And my slow ass was like 5:12. But that I can't even imagine doing that. I'd have to get in my car.
Yeah, I don't know during that time. What was your time, Trev?
What did Biggs have to get?
I think they had to get under 6.
Yeah.
I was right.
Because Biggs had to get under 6. But Mo Walker was not doing that. I don't know. Maybe your time he was, but not with us. So then
Mo Walker wasn't. Ralph wasn't.
Damian barely was.
Yeah. Colton.
Yeah,
Colton was
great. Right behind me, I remember
run.
Always. But yeah, guard said to get under 5:30 every day. If you didn't get under 5:30, you had to go to a secondary conditioning in the afternoon, and then Biggs had to be under 6, which, I mean, being a 7-footer or even Trev's height running under 6, I mean, that's pretty good. The funny part is, and sorry to digress here, but that mile, I mean, it's not really even, but I mean, I think it's more so the coaches, like, in the head for these players, like, who's tough, who can mentally withstand it. But like, yeah, I mean, basketball is more sprints, right? Killers and that kind of thing versus a mile. But, my thing is it's more mental, and the coaches want to see who's got the best mental stamina than anything.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Completely agree. So I just found it, and it looks like Braden Carrington at the fastest time with 5:14, and then Trayton and Dawson both finished under 5:20. And Jameson's time looks like it's undisclosed, but he cut 14 seconds off.
Dang.
But yeah, no, those are the times. So not bad at all. Awesome. Well, no, yeah, let's move past that Purdue game, fellas. I think we can all agree it's time to move past that one, and let's talk a little bit just more specifically about the Michigan game and what we saw in that game yesterday. So, like you guys said, they competed, right? I was happy that they competed. Like that's all you can ask for, at this point in time. They played them to the end, but Dawson, it seemed like when he was in the game, we were going. When he was out of the game, we weren't, right? He was in foul trouble towards the end. He got a little injured. So we still battled, but it was a tough one. It was a tough one. So I'll open it up to you, Blake. What did you see from that Michigan game yesterday, and what we were able to do? One, while Dawson was on the floor, then also, what did you see from when Dawson went on the floor? Is like an alarm? Isn't it alarming, like the drop off that we saw?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, a lot of times you see that if your best player or quote unquote best player is out of the game, right? You see somewhat of a drop off, but the good teams have guys that can come in and at least keep it somewhat steady. But when some of our top guys like a Dawson goes out of the game, you just see a huge decline in the momentum and just how the flow's going. And, I think he's probably at this point, probably our best offensive threat. I would have liked to think it was Battle early on in the year, but just how it's going, I think it's more, Dawson. So you see the just, maybe it's him inside from a defensive perspective as well, but you see a huge drop off, which you can't have as a team. I mean, anytime your best player goes out, you're going to see somewhat of a drop off, but you can't see us just completely go off a cliff. And, anytime he's out, I think he had 14 missed minutes playing as well as he did versus the Michigan game, but those were 14 big minutes. And a lot of the game that he wasn't in, that either Michigan came back from a deficit or pulled away from us on. And, I'm not sure what happened. I was watching the game when I think he hit that three or jumper, and then he went back and, it seemed like he was pointing at one of the fans like they had their legs stuck out. I mean, obviously they're not doing it on purpose, or I would think they wouldn't be, but they couldn't even tell if he did trip or if he tripped on his own, but hopefully he's okay, because without Garcia in the lineup, oh man, it's going to be a struggle bus. So, but I think we need to, going back to what I said earlier, we need somebody else besides Dawson to keep stepping up. And I think Battle's the guy that can do that. I know he's a Big Ten caliber player. He's got the physique, he's got the mindset, he's got the shot. But I think, we just need some other guys to step up. And I think the depth is a big problem for us right now. We played 7 guys last game. Granted, Carrington was out. Yeah. I don't think Thompson really got much playing time. I think off the bench, it was Henley and who would it be? Payne, probably.
And Cooper played 4
so,
minutes.
Unfortunately, we don't have that many guys that are putting in kind of minutes or valuable minutes, but anytime you get a couple injuries or a couple guys in foul trouble, that's going to really kill us. I don't know what you think, Trev.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way they came out. They came out on fire. They scored 8 points in the first couple minutes. So, okay, they're about to outscore what they did in the first half, the last game, in the first few minutes of the game. But I think the energy was there. Ola Joseph had a couple lobs for dunks, and you could tell the energy was there. We're knocking down shots. We were up like 10. Obviously, Michigan came back, and Dickinson showed why he's a first team all Big Ten player. We just couldn't guard him. Anytime Dawson was on him, he's picking up fouls. He was moving the ball. I think he had 12 at halftime. But overall, we did a good job defending them. Jet Howard missing. I think he missed most of the second half due to injury. Hopefully he's okay. But I think we were solid. I think we had a lot of chances to win the game. Even at the end, like we had, Michigan was basically letting us back in the game. They were missing shots, missing free throws. We just weren't able to capitalize off of it. But I think it was a very winnable game for us. I think the guys had the right attitude. I think Dawson definitely, missing those 14 minutes, that was the game right there. Like, he tried to come back after he twisted his ankle, and like you could see him hobbling up and down the court. And it was just like, at some point, it's like, let's just get him out the game. Like, it looks bad. Like, let's not make this worse. And I appreciate his heart, him trying to fight his team to a victory, but it just got to a point. It's like he's a liability at this point. They're just going to keep attacking him. He tried to take a couple of charges on Dickinson, and that wasn't working. But overall, I think we did pretty good job defending them. The energy was there. We didn't have enough players to make plays. Cooper, like, we can't expect him to play 40 minutes a game in a Big Ten. And I think that's how Jameson was last year.
Especially at the point guard position, too. I mean, bringing up the ball, guarding the point guard. I mean, that's a tiresome position. So
I don't know if I don't know if it's playing more zone, finding ways to play more zone. I know, like, you don't like to sit in the zone, but at the end of the day, if you have, if you're only playing 7 guys, like, you have to find ways. I don't know if you call a timeout. Thank God you have TV timeouts to kind of give you a break too.
Well, I was going right. You bring up a good point, and I was going to bring this up too, Trev. Is granted, it was at the end of the game, we were desperate, but like that little half, full court zone press. I mean, we had a couple deflections, a couple steals. We, it's not a word, but slopped up the game a little bit, right? And that's what I've been saying. Like, hey, I'm not a coach. I know Ben Johnson's really good, but like, part of me, if I was in that shoes, and it's easy to be a, coach sitting on my couch and looking at the TV, but like, I'd want to, I think they did well with that, right? So I don't know if we can get Ola Joseph at the top of that press to trap the, as the ball comes in, and try to get some deflections, or even just speed up the game a little bit or slow it down, whatever we want to do, or however the team plays it. But part of me would think, let's start doing something different and creative to change the game flow up a little bit. And I liked how they did it at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, but they go back to depth, though. If you don't have the depth to really do that, like, how long can he sit in the full court press zone, even if it's a zone? Like, I don't know if you want to speed the game up too much.
We got guys running 5:12, 5:14 miles. Come on, Trev.
Yeah. No, I don't even think it has to be a full court zone, no, but you can run a soft 22.
That's what I mean. Yeah, where you just
fall back.
You fall back and 10 seconds get off the shot clock, and they don't have as much time to set up a play. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I think it helps a little bit. I think even with Michigan yesterday, they didn't shoot the ball well from 3 at all yesterday either. And I think it helps with like those matchups, especially, I probably would have come out in the second half like that, because now Dawson isn't isolated against Dickinson or someone down low where he has to play soft or not really foul and play aggressive. So I think kind of switching it up a little bit helps. And then also it helps that depth, because I think against Michigan, like you both just talked about, the main reason we lost was the lack of depth. Like, if you look at those minutes, you got Talon playing 40 minutes. You say, yeah, we had 7 guys play, but I'm looking at Jaden Henley played 6 minutes. So count that for what it is, Blake. But we had 6.5 guys playing. Michigan had 8 guys playing. Like, you see Will Shetter come in every time with just a bundle of energy because he's been waiting to get off the bench, and he makes an impact. And we've got Jamison and Dawson and Talon hobbling around as they play so many minutes that after a while, Trev, like, Hunter Dickinson, we weren't going to be able to keep stopping him by, like, after 40 minutes playing that long. It's hard. It's not.
Well, part of it too, we always say create easy baskets. Like, we shot 23 threes last night or yesterday?
Yeah.
The Gophers, like, we shooting 30% for the season. It's like, how do we shoot 23 times? Yeah. We got to the line 7 times. Dickinson got to the line 9 times himself. So it's like, we're not getting to the paint. We're not taking advantage. There's for real, I think he did a great job sealing. I think a bunch of times we didn't look inside to get him the ball. Yeah, a lot better. It was like he had his man in the middle of the paint. We jack up a 3, and I was like, I know, but Michigan knows their game. They shot 13, 12 threes, and we shot 23 on the road. You're not making them, and we just got to find ways to create baskets. We're just, we're living, dying by the 3 when we're not a 3-point shooting team.
It stings too. I think you mentioned Will Schletter or whatever, but I think he's a Minnesota kid, right? If I remember right.
Yes, you were right.
I'm pretty sure he is. And every time I see that playing against a Minnesota team, it kills me a little bit, just being a Minnesota guy myself. But I know we can't get them all, but it is also good to see guys, from Minnesota go elsewhere and showcase that Minnesota guys can play basketball. And we've been starting to get some more publicity, but hoping to get some of these guys to stick around. But you mentioned his name, so I thought of it.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. But we got to figure it out. And Trev, like you talked about yesterday with the Gophers jacking up so many threes, and you talking about Blake about Jameson being a 3-level scorer. I think the whole team needs to get to that point too, though. I think we saw Josh Joseph get a little more aggressive getting to the rim, but we just got to get to the rim more and just force it. And I know our free throw shooting isn't the best, but I mean, yesterday we only got to the rim to the line 7 times, right? Where Hunter Dickinson got to the line 9 times. That's better than our entire team. So it's just a matter of being aggressive, finding the players down low. Trev, like you said, we have Pharrell Payne. We've been talking about not sealing for the last 3-4 games. He finally starts to seal, and we're not throwing the ball in the paint. And we get it. Like Trev, you probably can talk to him more than anybody. When you're a big man and you're exerting all the energy, guarding Hunter Dickinson on one end and going down and sealing, and Blake comes down and pulls up for 3, you're probably not happy. And I think that's kind of what's going on.
He's happy when it goes in, though.
That's a fact.
Yes. As a big, that's the worst feeling ever. I saw a couple of times, Pharrell, he's a hard worker, but he's in the middle of the paint. We jack up a shot, and it's just then you got to go defend a big man who touches the ball every time down.
Yeah.
So he's scoring 20 on you. You come on, man. Can I just get one touch? And that's why I think sometimes when he does get the ball, he's rushing and he doesn't have the confidence right now. But he's working himself, and we just got to find ways.
It's funny, and I think as a guard, I mean, you gotta observe that and see what your teammates are reacting like. Like sometimes I'd see if Trev's getting frustrated, I would overemphasize it to at least get him a touch, even if it's from the outside. Let him, hold on to the ball, right? Because bigs, unfortunately, bigs can take over games, but it's tougher for a big to take over a game than a guard, because the guards bring up the ball. They have the ball in their hands a lot more than a big. So bigs rely on guards a little more. And if guards aren't aware of personality or how often they're getting the ball, or, hey, Trev just put in a ton of work and maybe he's not super open, but damn, throwing the ball because he just worked his butt off on the other end, guarding Dickinson. Those are the things that you need to do to proactively keep your bigs engaged and involved, because you give him that, feed into the post, he's going to run and grab that offensive rebound or go work his butt off on the other end versus Dickinson, right? If he starts not getting the ball much, not that, I'm saying anyone's a selfish player, but it's just, getting in a rhythm of a game. If you're just not touching the ball, running back and forth and scrambling for loose balls, that's frustrating for anybody. I don't care who you are. Yeah. You could be the nicest guy ever and not be a selfish player, but that's just frustrating in general. So, part of me thinks, I'm not saying we don't have guards, but looking into next year, is that something that Coach Johnson and the coaching staff needs to focus on? We have a lot of bigs now and guys coming in for recruits, but do we need to look in the transfer portal to get some more experienced guards to help out with that guard play to maybe get over some of these humps?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think one of the things that they need to really look to focus on maybe right now and immediate is, from what you guys are saying, just more paint touches, right? Just in general. I think it opens things up a lot. I think it just opens up the floor a lot more. Maybe that just breaks down the defense more so we can swing it a little bit and do get it into the post. But I agree. If we're not engaging our big down low and we're not engaging on offensive end, it's hard to ask for them to do the same on defensive end, and they get out of it. And that's just natural human nature, I say. That's just how it is. But I think this team definitely needs, I don't know how many they got yesterday, they need an emphasis on paint touches on the offensive end, whether it's just getting it down low or whether it's the guards penetrating, because we settle for way too many threes, like Trevor talked about earlier. And if we keep doing what we're doing and ball screening on outside the perimeter with our guards and all, it works every now and then, but how do we figure it out? Yesterday during the game, I noticed there was a really good high-low action, I think, with Dawson and I believe Pharrell, right? And I know Trevor, I think you, Ralph, you, Rodney, you guys are really good at high-low. I'll keep it real. We got probably 12, 14 points with Tubby just from high-low. And we saw it yesterday, and maybe that's something we need to get into more, even look for it. And it's not like we've been turning it over when we force it, because we've had a few where we threw it and it was close, but we still got the ball. I think Pharrell has good hands. So maybe more high-low actions like that, but we need something where it kind of gets it moving, gets a few more paint touches.
Once again, Jameson in the post.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. Like even just having him post up a player here and there, ISO or whatever the case may be. Like we could take advantage of him. Ola Joseph too. Like we have big guards. Like we have guys who could take them. It doesn't have to just be our bigs. This could be our wing players also.
Yeah, I mean,
possession here.
Trev's right. I mean, generally, Jameson, a smaller guy, is guarding him, right? So Trev's 100% accurate there. And going back to the threes versus paint touches, I mean, let's face it, if we were the Golden State Warriors back in 2018 or whatever that was, or even now, like they can shoot the what out of the ball, right? So let them shoot some threes, but we don't have that. We don't have that. I don't want to say talent, but we don't have those shooters on the team right now, or a lot of them. So my always theory is if I got into Trev in the paint, or if I was playing with this team now, I got into Dawson or Payne in the paint and passed it in, I would say over 50% of the time they're going to score or get fouled, which gives their big a foul to potentially take them out of the game, and it gets us to the free throw line. The way we're shooting the ball from the outside, I don't see that happening as much as getting into the paint and having over a 50% chance to get a foul on the other team, go to the free throw line, or score. And I think that's what we need to focus on right now.
Yeah. I agree. Let's keep going on what we need to focus on right now. So let's move on to the scouting report. Let's move on to who we've got coming up next. So first game on the docket, in my opinion, a pretty hot Indiana team. So they won 3 straight Big Ten games. They just beat Michigan State last night, which is a very tough team. So they're feeling good right now. They're coming at Minnesota, playing Minnesota. So it'll be home at Minnesota at the Barn. I'm sure this Indiana team is feeling confident. Anytime you beat a Michigan State team, anytime you go, on a 3-game winning streak in the Big Ten, the only winning streak longer than that is Purdue, you're feeling good, right? So they're coming in, play the last ranked Minnesota Gophers, right? Probably a tough game for them to get up for, but they're also trying to get back to the top of the Big Ten. So it still means a lot to them at the same time. It's at home, fellas. I know we have a tough stretch. I know we probably aren't supposed to win this game, but I'll say a lot of our seasons, even on some of the worst losing streaks, some of the worst losing stretches, my seasons after, we usually try our best to protect home court, right? We still find a way to get wins at home. And our last home showing was fairly embarrassing against, Purdue. So it's time to really bounce back from that one. But I'll let you start here, Blake. Let's talk a little bit about this Indiana game coming in. What do you like from the Gophers against Indiana? What do they need to work on? And what's your prediction here?
I mean, I think Indiana's on a roll right now. They're like you said, they're 3-0 in their last 3 games. I mean, I think earlier on in the year, I think everyone thought Indiana was going to be even better than they are. And I think they're slowly coming out of their shell and starting to play a lot better. I do like how we're at home again, and we've had this last, even though it was a loss, it was close. We hung in with Michigan. I think we'll be hungry to try to get a win now at home. Hopefully everyone's healthy. I think things we need to focus in on is getting the ball in the paint, like we were talking about earlier. I think I would like to see Battle kind of get to the cup a little more, or work on the mid-range, post up a little bit. But obviously we're going to have to defend them. I mean, they got one of the best players in the Big Ten in their big, Trace Davis. So, I think it's going to be a tough game. I don't like how it's an 8:00 game, because for some reason Minnesota is getting a lot of these 8:00 games, and Minnesotan fans are kind of in the winter. They're not loving to come to our 8:00 games. So that scares me a little bit, that we're not going to have a huge fan following for that game to show Indiana what the Barn's like. But I do think we got a good shot. I think, this last loss, being as close as it was, hopefully lights a fire under these guys. And, it's a game that is at home. I think any game at home, for the most part, we have a chance, and we should be able to get a win. But they got to play well. We can't just go out there and, think they're going to roll over. They're definitely not going to do that. Indiana's trying to prove that they're one of the best teams in the Big Ten. And we got to do something different. And I don't know what difference it's going to be, whether it's going to be zone, whether it's going to be a half court press, whether it's going to be not shooting as many threes, whether it's going to be hitting our free throws. You name it, we got to do something differently, because whatever we're doing right now is not working. And I'm hoping to see that coming up in that game. I don't know. What do you think, Trev?
I agree. I think Indiana's playing good basketball right now. I watched part of the Michigan State game. You can see the energy. You can see like how hard they play, how physical they are. Mike Woodson is doing a great job over there at his alma mater. They're going to come in fire. Like, at the end of the day, like I feel like they're going to come kind of have that same mindset Purdue has. Obviously, they're not as good as Purdue, but we're going to have to come in and, create our own energy. Like to your point, like 8:00 games in Minnesota in the wintertime. You're not getting those big crowds unless you're winning games. And so we're just going to have to create our own energy, play hard. Race Thompson's coming back home. Trace Davis, he's a monster. He's good. And we're going to have to defend him well and take him out the game. We can't have him, we got to find a way to limit his touches, make it hard for him, stay out of foul trouble, our big stay out of foul trouble and attack him on the other end. But they have a good round team, a good solid all-around team, and it's going to be a battle. It's not going to be easy, but I definitely think this is a winnable game for us, especially if Dawson comes back healthy.
Yeah, I think one thing that Trev mentioned too, not to interject, and we'll flip it to Kendall, but what I'd focus on if I was one of the coaches is get the ball into whoever Trace, what is it? Trace, how do you, yeah.
Davis Jackson.
Whoever's he's guarding.
Jackson
Davis. Yep. I always flip that around, but go at him right away. Try to get him a couple fouls. I mean, I've watched him over the years. He's pretty solid at staying away from getting into foul trouble, but if we can get him 1 or 2 fouls to start, and that could be even overemphasizing it, right? Whether Payne's in the game or Dawson, like get them a lot of touches to start and make him try to get that block that turns into a foul, or get him reaching, or get him with a pump fake up and under, something like that we can get him out of rhythm, get him on the bench and start flowing from there. I mean, we don't want to focus too much on their team. You always want to focus on yourself, but at some point, it's good to, go at someone to start to see if they can get in foul trouble or see if you can get them out of their rhythm. And I think that's something that we should try to do right away.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you both talked about Trace Jackson Davis. He had 31 and 15 against the Michigan State team, right? How many times you get a double-double of 30 and 15 against a Michigan State team? So he's ready to play. I mean, he's had his name right in drafts in the past. So he's an elite player, an elite Big Ten player that's been around. I think Pharrell Payne, he's getting his money's worth this first Big Ten season. He's guarding some guy. He still have, like we talked about, man, it can only help him. But really, I mean, looking at it, the Michigan game, I know we lost, but them and also Ohio State, like looking at things we did well there, like I think we guarded well in those games generally. I think that's kind of what's kept us in the games. We played good defense. I think we had, good defense in the Michigan game. We had some laps, some dumb fouls, but other than that, we guarded pretty well. I think it's similar situations where Ohio State had a great freshman and Bryce Senapsabal. We kind of shut him down. He scored a lot. That slowed him down. Yesterday, Jett Howard, we were able to slow him down, another high-scoring freshman, and that kind of helped the game a lot. And another one coming up here, we have Jalen Hood-Schifino. And I don't know if you guys have seen, but he's on the first-round draft boards right now, another freshman, right? So we talk about all the good freshmen on our side, but there's some dogs in the freshman class across the Big Ten. So if we can do the same thing with him and keep his points down low, as well as do our best to hold, Trace Jackson Davis at bay, I think it's a winnable game for sure. And it's at home. I think it's super important, though, that we do find a way to get some more depth. Like, how do we get some more depth here? Like, that's going to be super important. I want to see more of Jaden Henley. I want to see more Henley out there. Like, we have to play him. Braden Carrington's not in the game. I think he showed glimpses of playing well, getting to the paint guarding at the beginning of the season. I don't think you have an option of playing 6.5 to 7 guys anymore. Sometimes with freshmen, it's a road thing that you're worried about, but we're at home as well, right? So let's get them out there at home, give them some confidence. But I think that's going to be a big piece of it. We're going to need to really capitalize in the next game. And then after that, go and get another one on the road in Northwestern. 2 winnable games, but fellas, I think the scouting report's easy. Compete. All of them, all guys, 40 minutes, just be confident and we'll win the game. Like that's it. That's the end of the day. And that's where I'm at with things, man. So let's go ahead and move on to the Word on Campus. So today's Word on Campus will be sponsored and presented by Mr. Blake Hoffarber. But Blake, I know you talked about Purdue being the #1 team in the country, right now. I want you to talk a little bit more about the rest of the Big Ten and how we're looking as far as the top 25 in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Big Ten guy through and through. Obviously grew up in Minnesota, grew up, loving the Big Ten. Had this discussion with a buddy of mine the other night, but when's the last time, and I'm sure someone's going to stump me listening to this, but, and maybe it's been sooner, but I don't remember the last time where we had only one Big Ten team, and sure, they're number one in the country, but in the top 25. Yeah. We don't have one other team in the Big Ten, even with this expanded Big Ten nowadays, in the top 25, which sure we can say, hey, the Big Ten's, deep and we're beating up on each other in the Big Ten. But man, besides Purdue, like, sure, they're number one, they're a juggernaut, they're good, but we don't have another top 25 team in the Big Ten, or I just, I don't even know. I don't even think the top 25's, slighting the Big Ten, because I don't see it right now. And sure, we're beating up on each other, and sure, Minnesota comes in, beats Ohio State, but Ohio State's lowest, pretty low on the Big Ten standings. But I haven't seen that in a long time. And sure, we got some dogs, we got some good players in the Big Ten, but I don't know if it's down, if it's all the teams are somewhat equal. But I don't remember the last time I've seen this few Big Ten teams in the top 25, and I can't even say, hey, they're slighting the Big Ten. I don't know, Trevor or Kendall, what you think, but I'm hopeful just because we've gotten a bad rap over the last few years of getting all these Big Ten teams into the NCAA tournament and kind of laying an egg. I don't remember the last Big Ten team to win a national championship either. And maybe you guys can remember that. I don't remember the last Big Ten team to win one. But right now, I think I read we still got 10 teams that are supposed to get in the NCAA tournament. But I don't really care about that. I care about teams that can actually get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4. And I want in March to say, oh, I see 2, 3, 4 of them that can make it to the Final 4 or Elite 8. But right now, it's not looking good for teams that can make it to the Final 4 based on what I'm seeing. What do you guys think?
I mean, I agree with you. I was looking at the rankings and looking at some of the games I've watched, and I haven't been impressed with a lot of these ranked teams. Like, you see Kansas get smacked by, 15-20 at home to TCU, and you see some of these teams. I think this NCAA tournament is going to be wild. I could definitely see a lot of upsets, and I could see like some Big Ten teams finally going far just because once you get into tournament play, it's a different ball game. But just watching some of the games, like a lot of these teams who are ranked right now, I'm not even impressed with them myself, and I think that it's going to be interesting. But I can't remember last time we've only had one team make. We've seen glimpses from Michigan State here. They were in and out of the rankings. Indiana's been in and out of the rankings. Ohio
Rutgers
State
just got knocked out this week. They were 23 or something, I believe.
Yeah, Rutgers. So we have a couple teams who have a little coffee break inside the rankings, and they're back out. So, I mean. Sorry about
that. But Kendall, I'm curious your thought here, but how many teams do you think, and hopefully it's more than I'm seeing right now, but that can truly make a difference in the NCAA tournament and get to a Final Four? But one team is kind of unacceptable in the Big Ten. And sure, the Gophers aren't there. We're struggling. We got a lot of teams probably that are on the I think I saw in there, between 26 and 30, you got Wisconsin, some Michigan States, and some teams like that are on the verge. But, I agree with Trev. I mean, it could be a pretty fun NCAA tournament based on that. And maybe part of that's going to, see how this transfer portal is affecting the NCAA tournament and big conferences and people moving around. You're not having these teams that have players playing with each other for 4 straight years that become juggernauts. But I don't know, Kendall, your thought on it, but I just thought that was surprising and had to bring that up because one Big Ten team in the top 25 is tough in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. And to answer your question about how many teams looking at it, I think could make a run in a tourney or maybe get to a Final Four. Quite honestly, if I was a betting man, 0. And I'll just be I don't see a team in the Big Ten that could do that. I think Purdue is hands down the best team. They're the number 1 team in the country, but they're just not a tournament team. I think there's a good chance, but I think in a tournament we've seen teams that, have good guards and can kind of run and get up and down. And I think Edie's a cheat code, but also attorney's attorney, like we talked about earlier, get them in foul trouble, whatever it may be. I think they're susceptible to a loss as well. Michigan State, maybe. I know they've been having some losses, but like I talked about, they've got some good guards, so maybe they could make it happen. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's tough. We haven't seen, I guess, a Big Ten national champion since 2000 in Michigan State.
That's what I was going to say. I thought it was hard, but that was the last time, huh? Wasn't that Mateen Cleaves?
Yeah, that's the last one. Yes, literally the last time. That's the last time. So I know we all tout the Big Ten, and it is a tough conference, and I don't know what it is, right? Like historically, I remember us always winning that Big Ten ACC challenge. I don't know about you guys. So it's one of those things where
every year I felt like we won that, except for the last couple of years. But part of me thinks, and I got to look back at all the players and stuff, but Big Ten has generally been a big guy dominated league. We got a lot of the big, bigs that are one of the big best players in the country are our bigs, right? To me, not just because I'm a guard, I think when you get to the NCAA tournament, it's very reliant on how good your guard play is. And not saying the Big Ten hasn't had great guards over the years, but I think we've been a little more geared towards good bigs. And that doesn't equate well in the NCAA tournament with that long of a tournament, with guards having to handle the ball, with tight games. Not saying bigs can't handle the ball, but the ball is generally in the guard's hands at the end of a game. And you need to have good guards that are playmakers. And that potentially could be a reason why the Big Ten maybe hasn't had a ton of success in the NCAA tournament over the years, because, we maybe other conferences across the country have better guard play than us from a holistic scale. I know we have good guards. I'm not saying the Big Ten doesn't have good guards. I was one of the guards, but maybe that could be a potential reason why.
Yeah, agree. I think the type of guard the Big Ten goes and recruits and brings in isn't that same type of guard we see in other conferences, such as like a Pac-12, who normally does well in the tournament, where they can really just get you a bucket, right? Top of the key, end of the shot clock, right? And I don't think that's something as common in the Big Ten. And I think even from a recruiting standpoint, right, when we see the younger guys and looking to make their college decisions, a lot of those top guards that we know that can just go get a bucket, we don't often see them come to the Big Ten. And there's a lot of reasons. I'm not going to say they're scared of it, but it's not a conference that's like really good for guards and guard play. Is more so that bruiser conference still. And I think we're kind of going through that transition right now. I think we see it with refereeing as well. It's kind of a little inconsistent. We're like, are we still that bruiser conference, or are we changing to this new world of basketball? Who knows where it is? But I completely agree. I think it's something we need to keep an eye out on as we get closer to the Big Ten tourney, and we'll see if some other guys, slip into the top 25.
Yeah.
But
fellas, Indiana's there.
Go ahead.
No, I'll finish.
No, I was going to say, fellas, appreciate your time, man. Appreciate your time today. I know it's tough to get up for these lately, as we don't have the best record in the start, but I think from basketball perspective, I think we all know this team still has a great future. They're competing. They're young. They're figuring it out. They're getting punched in the mouth. It's what they need to do to get better. They're going to figure it out. Hopefully next time we talk, I say it every time, but we're 2-0 on the season after this Indiana and the Northwestern game. But appreciate your time, fellas. We'll see you next time. Everybody, thanks for listening to another episode of Outside the Barn. For Blake Hoffarber, Trevor Mbakwe, I'm Kendal Shell. See you later.
Beyond the Big Ten is a network of podcasts that aims to be your go-to resource for all things Big Ten. We cover the entire conference with shows hosted by ex-players and athletic alumni, aiming to be your go-to source of information and entertainment for your favorite team. Hosted by ex-Big Ten players, media, and insiders, our podcasts are focused on giving diehard fans and those alums an inside scoop about the teams and people that make the Big Ten Conference one of the most watched and most talked about conferences in sports. We're excited to talk Big Ten basketball with you wherever you may be. Subscribe now.